you for coming out today.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you taking your time for this little interview. Could you state your maiden name for us?
Sure. Shelley Lane Roberts.
Okay, Roberts. Now, what nationality is that from?
That has an English derivative, and along with that, it's primarily Irish because there was a Doyle, a Riley, and a Murphy involved.
Okay, so like if we had to put a race on it, it would be, Caucasian.
Caucasian.
Okay.
Mhm.
So now where did you grow up?
My first few years were in Fall River, and after my father died when I was 4, my mother opted to go back to her hometown, which was Taunton, Mass.
Taunton. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, your early childhood, what years was that growing up? Primarily, elementary school into junior high.
For where I lived?
Yeah.
Taunton.
No, I know, but what was the 1960s, 1970s?
Well, it would be the 1960s, and I graduated from high school in 1971.
Okay. Now, how many siblings in your family?
At the current time, there are 4 of us. There were 6. A brother died at 6 months, and then there were 5 living girls.
Okay. Now, were you the oldest, youngest?
Youngest.
You were the youngest. Okay. Now, growing up, when you were in elementary school, was there a lot of people of color that were in elementary school in Taunton?
No, I went to a parochial school that was affiliated with our church, and it was probably a primarily Irish English parish.
Okay. So now after high school, did you go to work, or did you go to college?
I went to college,
Now, what college did you go to?
Bridgewater State College,
Oh, okay.
University.
Bridgewater State. Okay. Now, that's where you met your first husband?
Correct.
Okay. Now, how did you guys meet?
We met in fencing class.
Oh, fencing, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
And the reason I ended up in fencing was my girlfriend Anne Marie and I went to register for classes, and there was only one golf card left, so she took golf, and I said, "What do you have open?" And they said fencing, so I took it. And
Okay. So now your first husband, he was he also Irish English or
no, Cape Verdean.
Cape Verdean?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now Cape Verdean is more of a darker skin.
Yes, we had, when I was growing up in Taunton, we had a family next door. Their last name was Pina. They were also Cape Verdean.
Okay.
So,
So now when you guys had met, were you nervous at all to tell your family about it, that you were dating a Cape Verdean guy, or
not really.
no?
No.
Probably because you had the next door neighbor growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So now when you first told who did you first tell? One of your sisters or your mother, or how'd that come out?
Probably my sister. It's many moons ago.
Yeah. Now your older sister or your
My sister next to me in age,
okay.
but she's more like a mother because she's 16 years older than I am.
Okay. So now what was her reaction when you talked to her about this?
She's pretty open about most things in life,
Yeah.
so she didn't deem it inappropriate or anything.
No. Now did she think that any of your other siblings or your mother might?
Possibly my mother.
Yeah. So after she had said that, you were probably a little anxious to.
Well,
You said, well, maybe I'll see how long this lasts before I.
more than likely,
Yeah.
knowing my mother.
So now when you finally did talk to her, how did she seem about it? A little hesitant at first, maybe.
Hesitant.
Yeah.
And I don't know what word you could use to describe it. Well, we'll go with hesitant.
She was kind of reluctant, maybe because she probably didn't know, that many people of color or Cape Verdeans or, you know, she may have heard some stories about,
Well, she was very friendly with the neighbors next door,
yeah,
so, you know, I don't think she had an issue with that, and I just looked at them as the neighbors next door. I never looked at them as anything other than nice people.
yeah.
There was never a color barrier.
Yeah, so growing up in the household, it wasn't one of these racist households that you were taught not to trust black people
No,
or
no.
nothing like that.
No.
Now what about your husband there? Were you nervous to go see his family? Or,
No.
No?
I was young and naive, what did I know?
Okay. So now when you guys first got together, were there a lot of interracial couples at that time? That was what, in the 60s or the
No.
70s?
That was in the early 70s.
Early 70s?
And I guess I never considered us an interracial couple. So I you know, where he was Cape Verdean versus what I thought of African Americans, in my mind, we just were who we were.
Yeah. So now, what about your friends at college? When you guys started dating and stuff, did you notice anyone, you know, that you hung out with or that you would see on campus when you guys were together, you know, giving kind of stares or maybe whispers or anything?
No, not at school.
No.
No.
Now, what about off campus?
Um,
Any situations you can recall?
the only I can recall two situations. One was when we were getting married and we were looking for our first apartment.
Okay.
We were trying to find some place in between where we both worked, and we went to look at the apartment that was advertised, and they told us the apartment was taken.
Oh.
And I just had that funny feeling that the apartment was not taken. So at that time, this was pre-cell phones, went to a phone booth and called the house again, inquiring about the apartment, and it was still available.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. So we called friends of ours, and at the time, my friend Mike was a constable, and he took a ride down to the apartment,
Mm-hmm.
and went to speak to the people who were renting out the apartment. We didn't pursue it other than he said that to the people that they were not allowed to discriminate, and felt that that was a discrimination situation.
Okay. So that was one. There was another incident as well?
When we moved from our first apartment down to New Bedford, we went to look at another apartment in this area, and the man who was renting that referred to, at the time, my husband. Well, we also had my father-in-law at the time with us too, looking at the apartment, and he was being politely should I say, not discriminatory, but in referencing, well, you know, I've had dealings with your people before, the comment-wise.
Yeah.
We didn't like the apartment, so we didn't take the apartment, but I felt badly for my father-in-law sitting there more than I did for us.
Yeah. Now, after those experiences, did you feel like that you were more upset, or your then husband was more upset about the situations?
Probably equally.
Yeah.
And the second encounter, I think I was more upset for my father-in-law than I was for us.
Yeah. How did he take it?
He's a very low-keyed gentleman, and he took it with grace.
Yeah. Okay. So now growing up, how would you describe your family's ethnicity or cultural?
As far as my at-home upbringing,
Yeah.
Very strict, very few choices. It was a do as I say type of household. Not anything as far as questioning why, that was not acceptable. And basically, whatever was at home stayed at home. You didn't, as my mother would put it, air your dirty laundry outside of the house. So, very closed mouth, but toe the mark.
Yeah. So now, what types of foods do Irish, English people eat?
Basically your meat and potatoes type dinners. Growing up, it was always meat, some sort of meat, pork chops, steak, chicken, whatever, potatoes, a vegetable. Very seldom, my mother's idea of getting Chinese was strained chow mein. And once in a great while, what is now Benjamin's restaurant in Taunton used to be the Polish American Club. And on Friday nights in the bar, they used to make pizza. So once in a great while, I could go down and get a pizza. That was our idea of Italian.
Oh, okay.
So very non-adventurous types of food.
Yeah. So now, when you and your first husband were together, coming from two different cultures, how did that combine in the household that you guys were starting?
Basically, I cooked what I knew from growing up, and then started to introduce some new food categories into the household. Probably anything that had to do with Cape Verdean cooking would be if we were at a party at one of his relatives' houses. I didn't necessarily do any type of ethnic cooking.
Mm-hmm.
So we had it basically outside of the home, and as far as say Italian or Chinese or any of that, then that's when we started exploring other food types too.
Yeah. So now that you guys, it's been 20 or 30 years since you guys were together, with the interracial, and you see now in 2011 a lot more of interracial couples. You know, whether it's someone of color and someone white, Asian. It seems like the barriers have slowly started to fall, and people have been more acceptance.
I think so, and I really think up in our particular area, more so than, say, maybe still down south, because it's such a diverse type of population between Spanish-speaking people, whether from Puerto Rico or Cape Verdean and Creole and different things. I think with such a mixture, it just seemed normal.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like it stood out, but I was never, outside of those two previous incidents I spoke to you about, I never felt a particular way. I don't know if, other people of color or of particular social, ethnic background still feel that there's a prejudice against them. That I don't know, but growing up, it was, you played with the kids in the neighborhood, and you just socialized with whomever, and it didn't seem to be a big deal, which is good. It's the way it should be.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you once again for sharing some of your personal experience with us.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's very enlightening. Hopefully some of the generations to come, they can look back and see this interview and know where some of their roots started.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
You're welcome, and have a good day.
You too.